right, welcome to the Garden Podcast. This is sponsored by the Garden Worship Service at San Diego United Methodist Church in Encinitas, California. I'm Faith Daniel, one of the pastors of the Garden Worship Service, and I'm joined by my co-host Mark Maddix, lead pastor at San Diego UMC. The goal of the Garden Podcast is to help people of faith think critically, love authentically, and serve compassionately.
And today we're excited to have with us Rob Bell, the author, speaker, creative force behind a range of projects that challenges conventional ways of thinking about faith, spirituality, and human experience. Rob, it's an honor to have you with us here at the Garden Podcast today. So welcome.
Yeah, it's cool to be with you. Here we are.
Yeah.
So Rob, over the past few years, you've done a ton of different stuff. You've been making art, plays, fiction novels now. I have one of them with us, and then I've been reading Where'd You Park Your Spaceship? There's only one Noonye on Audible and on Kindle, but it's just been so fun to read all of this creative stuff. How does this creative work fulfill your spirit, and how does it feel different from your earlier work, whether that was as a pastor on your speaking tours or as writing nonfiction?
What a great question. In some ways, it's all an evolution in a particular direction. In some ways, like a lot of us, we're following something that we can name and we can't name. Like just ask somebody, why do you live where you live? The person can give you a list of reasons. And also, there's lots of places to live.
Right.
You had some sense, some deeper knowing. So I find it all very mysterious, and there's a certain clarity around. I loved creating things and sharing them with people. I was in a band, like in college, and there was something about lyrics, like feelings, emotions, responses to life, and capturing it in words, and then we would perform the songs and people would like dance. And then after a while, we made cassettes back then. I don't know how much of your audience we'd have to explain what a cassette is, but
I do remember cassettes. Yeah.
It was like music now, only with a hiss on top. But there was something about the communal experience of creating something and sharing it, and then down the road, people would sing it along with us. That was like, there was something about naming the human experience and all of us being together that it helped me. I was never that good of a student. I never was like one of the cool kids. I was always like, what am I even doing here? Could I even? But that was something about that was like, oh, I could do this. And then when I discovered the sermon, it was like, oh, and I don't have to deal with bandmates. And there was something about the sermon that was, I saw it as an art form. And following, and I do distinctly remember following it as, I wonder how far this can be taken. So I would cover the stage in dirt. I would have people hidden in the audience who would all of a sudden stand up and interrupt me, but it was staged. Or I would have things like props under people's chairs. So it always felt like guerrilla theater, or like you don't know what's going to happen next. And I was learning and growing and expanding. So I was creating these experiences, and right away I realized, oh, what I saw in this, people would come up and say things like, oh, thank you so much for that sermon. It helped me understand my mother's death. And I'd be like, wait, that sermon was about generosity. Like, what am I even doing? Like, exactly. I didn't talk about just, like, I realized something larger was happening in the space way beyond me. Like, you create these things and share them, and then people have their own experience way beyond perhaps what you had. And so that I can draw a direct line to that, from that to like the Where'd You Park Your Spaceship books. I would say for decades, there was an explaining energy, like this Hebrew word, this Greek word, this text. And this is like, if I have a point or a message, then the story goes dead. It only works. I don't know what's happening. I just know this story is doing something to me. Um, so in that sense, it's very different in that I don't know why his name is Dill Tud. I don't know why her name is new. It just delights. And when I'm writing it, it's like a spell. I'm caught up in it, and there are tears, and I'm laughing, and I'm shaking my head, and I'm perplexed, and I'm enthralled. But I don't know what its message or point is. That's why doing something like this with you all is so interesting. Is people are like, well, this is what I saw in that part. It's like a book club
Right.
where everybody's
Exactly.
talking about what it did to them. I'm joining you and going, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it answer your question, joy. It just is just where the life is. I don't actually think about the purpose or why, or uh, my mind is actually very quiet about it. It's just, oh, we'll do this next.
Mm.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
like a certain kind of stillness.
Mhm. Yeah, and Rob, given what you've just described and your own journey and the books that you've written in this recent one about spaceships, I mean, you're kind of pushing a little bit against, there's aspects of faith there. There's aspects of pushing against issues of faith and reality. Maybe spin that out for us a little bit more. You mentioned that you weren't really necessarily trying to accomplish something there, but there's something very deep that's there. What is it that you're trying to get the reader to kind of grasp and to feel or to experience?
Well, what's interesting, like when you create a world from scratch, so you're just like, then they're not called years, they're called laps.
Right.
Right.
You're just describing a world. Well, this is how they do it. Oh, and then you find out later that actually, when you go to school to fly a spaceship, when he finds out that in the end, the instructor's like, oh, by the way, you can also just push a button
Yep.
and it just flies itself. Um, the really fascinating thing, and then how when in book one, when Heen's dad is asking him, well, they telling him, oh, they changed education all around.
Yeah.
Uh, what what do you think? What's school like for you? And Heen's like, oh, it's like dangerous and thrilling, and like you never know what's going to come next. It's like he describes the most riveting thing ever, and he's like a young boy, and his dad's like, yeah, it didn't used to be like that. Um, what's fascinating to me is how many people, in talking to them about the books, it just is like, oh, wait, how is this world set up?
Yeah.
In our world, it could be set up differently.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could have an economic system that doesn't create a widening gap between rich and poor.
Right.
Like, why does the US possess nuclear weapons that could blow the world up more than once? Wouldn't
Right.
you get enough weapons to blow it up once and be like, we're good?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's like the dumbest thing ever.
Yeah.
You, so if faith is just a thought exercise or just a bunch of stuff in your head, well, that's not that compelling. But if faith is essentially how you move in the world,
Mhm.
like, well, then how are we moving in the world? And apparently, the whole thing is way more malleable than
Mhm.
anybody first realized.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, you can move in new ways. So anybody at the most basic level of our life, you could move with greater compassion. You could move with more of a spine. You could have stronger boundaries around somebody who's constantly taking advantage of you. You could live more simply, and then you would have less pressure with the bill. So that's what's become super interesting to me is
Yeah.
this thing is actually way more limber. The clay is a lot more wet than most people realize.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I find Nunya as a character to just be so joyful. Like I love her so much, and I have loved getting to read her and be in her world in book two and watch her try to figure out how anything works. Like,
Yes.
but then also to watch her grieve so much in this book has been just so heartbreaking. And um when her yak passes and she buries him and just talks about wanting to like
Yeah.
go in with him into the hole, like, oh my gosh, I just felt like I have related to that so much in my own personal life. And I just thank you for her for and her as a character. I have really enjoyed
Oh,
seeing her grow in the book.
thank
Yeah.
you. I showed an showed the book to a friend of mine when I first wrote it, and she had a very strong reaction against Nunez
Mm,
and how she didn't relate. She's like, I'm fine when she's a kid, but then when she hits like adolescence, roughly,
mhm,
uh, whatever that age is, she's like, I couldn't relate.
mm,
Like she just like when a girl becomes a woman, a whole world of things get put on her shoulder about what a woman can and can't do and how men view her. And so I sat with that note, and my friend was like, I literally lost sleep. It made me so upset,
mm,
which I thought was it was very, very helpful to me because I realized later, oh, Nunez has no conditioning or
right.
programming. She has no voice on her shoulder telling her what she can and can't do.
Yeah.
She's just having these experiences and narrating, like when she meets the girls who are brushing their hair and she hates them. And she's like, I don't know what this word normal means,
Yeah.
but I don't like the energy of it.
Hmm.
So she doesn't have any and then she's in this isolated place with this strange woman Gurge. So
Yeah.
there's no structure of what you're supposed to do or be. You're just present to your life. Going back to faith, we are we're learning to listen to our lives
Yeah.
and these giant structures around us that are like, this is what it means to be fill in the blank, successful, legitimate, worthy, a good whatever, a good worker bee who props up the structure, whatever it is. And how many people right now you're watching taking so much of this apart? Like even the American story is built on taking land, like taking apart these various stories and going, hold on, a bunch of stuff we inherited here that
Yeah.
actually involved real people whose ancestors are alive and well around us. Like,
Right.
um,
Right. Yeah.
so that to me became really, really compelling to see her through the lens. Because I have a daughter who's 15 who came to destroy the patriarchy beginning with me. Like, she just has a whole world of
Yeah.
things that she's
Yeah.
like, that's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, or like even the idea that like, well, the goal is to own a house and to have a like for her, there's like a whole world of things that was like, well, this is, means that you've been a good person and made it. That for her are like, yeah, no, passion, uh,
Mm.
a sense of a thing that she's here to do is like so deep in her. So that's one of, to me, the gifts of the Nunez as I began to like, especially my friend's reaction, like, oh, because that's what we're all doing. Like, what does it actually mean to be human
Yeah.
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
new ways?
I know Faith and I were talking right before you came on, and she's talking about how the new book has really impacted her,
Yeah.
emotionally. Maybe share a little bit about that, Faith, or related to how it's impacted you.
No, yeah, I've experienced two losses
Mm,
back in 2021 of two friends very close together, and just having a character without, as you're saying, this baggage of what it means to grieve and what that looks like, for one, was really, really impactful to me to just watch her process that in her own way without a societal norm of this is how you do it. This is what that looks like. Uh,
right.
as the suns pass, she's just sitting there in her hammock and just grieving in her own way. Like,
Yeah.
I just really, really love that. But then exactly like you just said, she is someone who is so strong-willed on her own, not afraid to talk about, if someone says a word that she doesn't understand, she's willing to just ask what it
Yeah.
is.
Yes.
It's very small things that, I just really admire her gumption, maybe is the word I want to use. Like her ability to just be her authentic self and not let others around her dictate. And you see that as she starts to grow up and as men start to notice her and how that affects her and how that
Right.
harms her. Yeah.
Right. Oh, I love that. Yeah, that thing people do, like, that scene in Game of Thrones where, and you haven't seen it, but you're like, yeah, no,
Exactly.
I don't have time to pretend like I read that article in the New York Times.
Yeah.
Right.
I just can't do it anymore. Well, you talked mentioning grief, Mark.
Yeah.
How many people right now in our have ungrieved grief?
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
even like for your community,
Yeah.
a gathering that is just to come grieve.
Yeah.
Like, we're not that we're just gonna come be human together. What needs to be grieved? How much larger unrest and dissonance you could trace back to ungrieved grief.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah. And
That
taking time to lament. We're not good about doing that.
absolutely just spaces. All we're doing is lamenting, and no one's gonna step in at the end and be like, "Hey, we're gonna be okay, gang." No, just lamenting. No easy answers. No, just being human together without. There's no point or purpose. We're just lamenting. It's central to the human experience. Even like you think about when celebrities die and there's this outpouring. And yes, I liked Mrs. Doubtfire, but I never met Robin Williams. There's like this,
Yeah.
um, yeah, because of all this ungrieved grief. And then somebody we kind of know
Yeah.
dies, and it's like a valve opens, and out comes all this other
Yeah.
Yeah.
grief.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whew.
Well, and probably you're sensing this, but I know in our congregation, a lot of people are feeling a lot of grief and pain right now, given what's going on in our world.
Oh my goodness.
They're
Yeah.
feeling like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And we've even talked about we may create some support groups just for people to grieve and to process they don't know what to do with all this, right?
Yes. Right.
It's
Right.
it's like, it's just big, and they're having a hard time coping. Even they're just like, how do I cope with this?
Yeah.
And it's only been a few weeks, so right, we got 2 or 4 more years of this. So
Right. Right. So you think about the gift of creating spaces where people can be together. If you did be like, okay, here's the solution, here's where it's headed, that no
yeah,
one knows, but well, we're here together. We'll give it the expression that it's asking for. You want to vent, room 103. You want to rage, go out back. We have some sledgehammers and tires. I don't know. Like, yeah, yeah, this is, yep. And a bunch of ways, like a whole way the world was organized doesn't work
yeah,
anymore. So, how do you let what wants to die die so that what wants to be birth?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
that's like, yeah, death and rebirth. We know about this. So,
yeah,
oh my goodness, so much right now. Even you think about this American mythology, like American exceptionalism is an actual term that people used. But like if you were in Germany and you were like, American exceptionalism, people are like, wait, you being serious? This is not an SNL skit? Um, even,
yeah,
yeah, it's
exactly.
the greatest nation on earth. Wait, hold on. With the greatest shadow in human history of like a bunch of things are dying. It's good. It's good. It's good. Needed.
When you're writing this, the second book, and really through both books, were there certain human experiences or people that were came to mind as you were imagining and developing these stories? Was there kind of a backdrop to some of this, of your own experience, your own existential life coming through there?
What's interesting, Mark, about that question is if I were to like if a character was modeled after somebody, the story would go dead. It
Yeah.
only works if I am utterly besotted with this character, like they're 100% fresh. But then my family will like my one son was like, yeah, no, I just know where you get all this, so I can't even read it because my
Yeah,
family laughs because they're like, you got this from this from this, that's from that.
you're
It's
right.
like a dream where you wake up in the morning and you were like, I was in Thailand kite surfing, in your dream, but you're like, I've never been to kite surfed in Thailand. Like your subconscious made up a bunch of stories in the middle of the night that you're like, that's not me, but it is. Like it's bits and pieces. So what's fascinating about the story is I don't have any conscious anything, but then obviously it all comes
Yeah.
from all of these places. And I can see, and Faith alluded to it, Nunez doesn't have anything to hold her experiences up to. Like how long grieving should take, or even her own growth as a person. She has no I should be farther along by now. She has no sense of how long this should take it or how it should feel. She just has how it does feel. So I can, if I back up enough, see my own life. This just feels like it feels. This is just taking how long it's taking. This, like my boys are in their 20s and have left home. They're out in the world being them, and they were my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still, I'm still not adjust. I'm so happy for them. If they were home, it'd be odd because they have things they got to go do, and I'm completely cheering them on. And I'm still not over it.
Yeah.
So I have all these conflicting, I wouldn't want it any other way. And can't we all just go back to driving around together and beating together and I'll make you omelets in the morning? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all of that in my own, yeah, I'm just still adjusting. Even still is a layer of judgment that's unnecessary.
Mm.
I'm adjusting.
Yeah.
And so I become hyper tuned in to all of the ways the mind, in its grief, sadness, joy, euphoria, creates templates of time that it then judges itself against. Like I should be okay by now. I should be done grieving that by now. And so essentially we're punching ourselves in the face and then searching for fists. Like we created that suffering. It's just taking how long. And I've noticed how many, and my sense is that the collective communities like yours, healing a warped relationship to time is going to be a huge, huge. I think more and more people are going to be like, actually, I'm out of whack with time because I keep feeling shame and judgment about why can't I. Even you think about the glitch in the progressive movement, which is we should be farther along with, and obviously we all want to see the world a more beautiful, harmonious, inclusive, fill in the blank place, but it's taking how long it's taking. And that I'm taking how long I'm taking.
Yeah. Yeah.
And often I notice the people who are the most harsh about how come they don't get it, they aren't enlightened, progressive, whatever enough. They're actually talking to themselves about their own sense of they wish they were farther along. Like it's just taking how long it's taking.
Yeah.
And actually, if you come to terms with that, then you actually become a much more compelling. The person who is so shrill about, like even right now, you think about how many people on the right are like, we're fascists. You're you're the ones with these incredibly rigid standards of where everything is supposed to be.
Right.
Like, and I'm noticing how many people, even the right and left, there's brittle and unforgiving and a sort of low level fascism or high level on both sides.
Yeah.
That I'm taking how long I'm taking.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that now you actually, these are the people we want to hear from.
Mm.
I am where I am.
Yeah.
We're coming along.
It might be some benefits of getting older too, right? You become more reflective, you become more realistic,
Yes, and you
malleable.
have to love all the earlier marks and all the earlier faiths and all of the what was I thinking back then? I'll tell you what I was thinking. I was scared, lonely. I wanted to fit in. There was a good paycheck. This is what I was taught. I was like, what was I thinking? That's the one question I can't answer. I'm human. I was
Yeah.
thinking I was worried. I was stressed. Like,
Yeah.
it's actually the question I can answer.
Yeah.
I'm a human. This is what happens when you're humans. You feel all these things.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, Rob, on that point, I really love the way that you talk about your past Robs and something being like 7 Robs ago. And I really do. And I was wondering, where did you get that framework? Where does that come from? And how does it shape how you think about the present and the future?
Yeah.
Like, do you
Great
ever
question.
wonder what the next 3 Robs are going to be like or something like
What a great question. You know, I started using that a couple of years ago because I always had a sense that I was following something. And I remember being a pastor and noticing, because when you first start out in like a playing field, like being a pastor, there were other I guess I should hang out with other pastors. I guess that's how works. But I would notice that a pastor would say something to me like, "Oh my God, I just read whatever book. It blew my mind." Of course, I would never mention that because I'd lose my job. And I noticed their own exploration, growth, discovery, expansion. And then they received a paycheck from an institution to be this person. And so I literally, I remember like in my late 20s noticing that they had 2 modes, like how they talk to you about what was really happening inside of them, and then almost like the role they were playing in that setting. And I remember this very sobering, oh, I'm not here to do, I can't do that. I remember I'd done a bunch of sermons, God, this is like 25 years ago, about women's equality. Like, yeah, if a woman leads, she is lead. Like what, that is not just, do we even have to say that? And I remember going to lunch with a guy who led a community, and he was like, so that whole thing you've been doing recently, how would you, and he starts in on a question and he stops and then changes the subject, like record scratch, stop. Well, anyway, so what's going on with your kid? Like, and I remember it was like shown to me in like slow motion. If he actually asks his question and I answer and we go there for that guy, paycheck, health benefits, his family, like the domino effects politically, his world. And I remember early on, 1999 ish. I do remember something like, oh, I think my job is to grow in public, to like follow it where it goes. Um, that and just keep following it, which I can kind of articulate at any given moment and kind of can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do know the joy of talking with you all right now. I had to learn the joy of what we're doing right now. That's all we got.
Yeah.
So part of the answer to your question is somebody would say like, hey, that book that you wrote in 2009, and I would notice like I'm not that guy, almost like a low level. Don't you realize that I'm not that guy? But what a wonderful thing that Rob at that time is talking to this person now.
Yeah.
So like, is it Bob Dylan? We contain multitudes. I
Yes.
somewhere in there, it was a way to not be like, don't you realize that I've come a long way since then? Because I don't want to be, no one wants to be that guy or talk to that guy. And somewhere I started, oh, if I would feel that feeling and the person would be bringing up some thing I did whenever, oh yeah, that was like 4 Robs ago. And I noticed how many people would immediately smile.
Yeah.
Or
Mhm.
people would say, what do you see the world exactly like you do? What do you do about all the earlier stuff you said? And I would be like, do you see the world exactly like you did a decade ago?
Yeah.
So I just took some pictures. I just wrote a book about that moment.
Yeah.
Well, so what do you do if you kept going? Oh, then I celebrate that's where I was.
Mm.
So that's part of it, was just owning every step of the way.
Yeah.
And that just became, and especially generally, if you're laughing, it's a pretty good indication that you've gotten to the real truth.
Yeah.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like if there's something odd or you came in the side door about it, I mean, if the divine is ultimately paradox, the known, the unknown,
Mhm.
this moment, all moments. I am just me, and I am part of a larger giant collect. Like there's just these endless two things are true at the same time. Once you become fine with the paradox and see that's actually now you're getting to the truth, then I'm this Rob, and I'm also all the other Robs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to make up the number, by the way. It's always a different number. You've
Right.
never counted. It just has to be. Yeah, that was like 21 Robs ago. Like you just have to, that the absurdity of it is there's no math. It's soul. I call it soul math.
Yeah.
There's no calculator for that.
Yeah. Yeah, that one of those previous Robs sure took a lot of heat for those kinds of things too, about being transparent, being open, being honest, and
Yeah,
being your
yeah,
true self. I mean, I remember those things you were going
yeah.
and read those books, and I remember reading your Love Wins book in a small group at Sunday school class, and people's brains were just like, what is this guy's crazy? And I said, oh, listen to what he has to say. There's some good things here. Let's talk about it. Let's imagine what this might be. And
Yeah.
but I want to say I appreciate your creativity, your willingness to be a prophetic voice in those moments. And I know it's part of your own journey, but it also represented the journey of many of us as well, right? We
Mm,
were we were in
hmm.
that place too. And by having somebody like you who had the influence that you did in those moments, be able to say those things gave us a sense of liberation as well. It gave us a
Mm,
sense to have
hmm.
a voice, to say,
Hmm.
what Rob Bell's writing about and talking about here, these are things we're feeling and experience, but like that pastor who you talked to is afraid to talk about it. We were afraid to talk about it too, right?
Yeah,
And it gave
yeah,
us
yeah.
it gave us a voice in ways
Mm,
that was transformative.
hmm.
And
Oh, that's beautiful.
yeah, in all of our journeys, we do have our past selves, and we're at a different place now. And I know in my own journey that's true, right? And
Yeah.
I look back at reading your book 10 years ago, and I think that was mind blowing. But now it's like, okay, I got it. I mean, that's right. But at that time, I mean, I can remember the people in that group that when we read that book,
Mm.
I can remember the reactions,
Yeah.
and it pushed us in ways that helped us, uh, as you're talking about through these novels, some ways breaking down some of the structures of our faith to be able to release ourselves in a way to say, maybe those structures aren't really what's most important. Here's the things that
Yeah.
are most
Right, right, right. I remember at that time, like that book especially, I remember thinking, wait, wait, wait. There's there's nothing in this book that's new. Like in the fourth century,
right,
Yeah.
right.
people and being like, you don't I think you have a problem with me. You're actually at odds with the wideness of your and depth of your own tradition. Like, fine, throw all the rocks you want, but like this isn't like radical. Or it is radical in the meaning of radical meaning a return to the root. By the way, Mark, you might enjoy this. I remember doing it makes me laugh now. At the time I wasn't laughing that much. I did. I remember I did lots of interviews about that book, and I remember essentially the book was like speculating about what happens when you die just isn't that interesting. And anybody who is quite certain about those things is like, that's kind of odd, actually. Like, that's weird. But like heaven and hell is present states of reality. I don't need to go to when you die. Look around you. Like, look inside a person.
Yeah.
Like, present states of consciousness that actually have real world implications. Like, I can see now the book was trying to, let's move this into an actual present reality and the kind of world we're creating, which, side note, kids, seems to be Jesus' point. Okay. So I would
Yeah.
do that in the interview. Like, let's, like, no, stop being insane and let's talk about this world
Yeah.
now, because that seems to be like the straightforward Jesus thing here. And the number of interviewers would be like, yeah, that's good. I like that, Rob. That's excellent. So like, what do you think Hitler is? Like, just couldn't not do, you know what I mean? Couldn't
Yeah.
not.
No,
Then
exactly.
what's that? 2011, 2023. I do Where'd You Park Your Spaceship book one, and it's um editor's note, a completely made up world.
Yeah.
Like none of it's real.
Right.
And every interview, just like Faith when she with Nunez when her yak dies, every interview people are like grief, loss, economics,
Mm-hmm.
justice, the arrangements, governance. Like every interview, like the number of people who 5 minutes in would be like, "Yeah, I lost my mother,"
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, "Okay, you write a book about this world." Trying to rescue you people from all sorts of speculation about what is real or whatever, and keep just saying it straightforward. And people are like, yeah, but what happens someday? Then you completely make up a world. And everybody was like, wow, this has a lot to say about what we're doing right now.
Right.
So I
Right.
was like, okay, I give up. I
Yeah.
give up.
As you know, I mean, especially people of faith, and I'll be more specific, Christian faith, I think oftentimes need to have things, they need things very well defined, and they need these categories. And when those categories don't
Mm,
work, or when they get taken down because of life experiences, whether it's grief or loss or pain, or they have a child that's queer, or whatever it is, right? It rocks the world in
yeah.
ways that they
Yeah.
don't have anything to hang on to. And
Right. Right.
the beauty of your books is it gives us a sense of imagination about our faith in ways that
Yeah.
maybe we didn't have before.
Yeah. I love you saying that because if you actually think about like the Christian lineage, Jesus is like, hey, like if you have a vineyard, which by the way, how many people are like, oh yeah, yeah, vineyard, I have a vineyard. I can relate to this. Um, like you think about, oh yeah, there's this guy who has a vineyard and people show up at different times, but they all get paid the same amount. Like, I just need to ground myself in something. Okay, great. Ground yourself in that story. Apparently, infinity can be infinitely divided and it's still the same amount. Like, that is a weird, surreal. So a man has a son who says, "Give me my share of the inheritance." That's like the most offensive possible thing ever, and the father grants it. Like this didn't happen. This would like no one would believe this story. So it's just fascinating. We're like, just ground me in something I can rely on. Okay, fine. This is some very mysterious, surreal, profound stuff here that will take you into some incredible places. But it's just funny to think about. Or like even it's like lamenting. Great. You want some security? We're gonna get together and lament. Safest place in the world to be honest about what's happening inside of you. How's that?
Yeah.
How's that?
Yeah. Well, Rob, looking back on your journey from Velvet Elvis till now with our Nunya character, what is continuing to surprise you about the work that you're doing?
uh how if you just keep following it, beginner's mind, where you're in a new space and it feels like it's all new, although you also can appreciate things my sense of gratitude, your gratitude can actually grow, and that you can actually get younger as you get older. I was, just before I talked to you, talking to one of my plays is having its East Coast premiere, and I was talking to the director about specific characters, and like I don't he's in an office of a theater company in Manhattan, and he's like, and then the other guy in the call runs the theater where the play is going to premiere. I don't I don't know I haven't gone to any workshops on writing plays. I haven't read a book on playwriting. I haven't been to school. I've only been to like maybe one or two plays in my life.
Yeah.
And these plays, you can find yourself in new spaces. And I mean, the conversations you're having on this podcast, you can find yourself in new spaces, trying new things. And it's like really, really, really satisfying. And when I meet someone who's like, I'm on the last third of my life, or, I only have a few years left. I'm like, wait, what? What? You're here today. What do you want to do?
Mm.
Like, what do you want to do? Of course, there's something you could try, or some space you could move into, or there's more. How could there not be? And that, yeah. So the various things I'm up to now, it's like I didn't see this coming, and also, yeah, that kind of checks out.
Yeah.
That kind of checks out. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like surprised and not surprised. I'm like, wow, are you kidding me? That is, and that's pretty great. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Rob, we thank you so much for spending some time with us and having conversation. Thank you so much for your creative spirit, the ways in which you're engaging it and helping others to think broadly and deeply, but also to embrace mystery and the creativity of life. And we really appreciate you being a part of the Garden podcast today. And just as a reminder for those who are listening, the podcast is available on gardenencinitas.org. And if you find this podcast meaningful to you, we just ask that you give us a thumbs up and maybe drop us a few comments. And again, if you're in the Encinitas area, we invite you to our classic worship service at 9:30. It's also available online, live streamed, and the garden worship experience at 11 o'clock, where Faith Daniel leads that. So again, thank you, Rob. Great to have
I
you.
loved it. Thank you
And
for having me on. Long live Nunez.
yeah, yes. Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Bye-bye. See you
Bye.
down the road.
All right.
Bye.